But it seems to me that him and others have selective amnesia. Does anyone recall when a young Kobe Bryant was shooting air balls in the playoffs against the Utah Jazz back in the 96-97 season? He was somebody's son. In fact, his dad played. RP to the both of them. His dad played. And Kobe got torn to shreds. And what did Kobe do? He transformed himself and became this all-time great. And personally, I think Bronny James is going to be a good NBA pro. I really do. But no one is shielded from criticism when they're in the public eye. Welcome to the channel, everyone. This is Can I Be Earnest, back with another video. More social commentary for the tomfoolery that's going on in society right now. Who's at fault in the LeBron James, Stephen A. Smith confrontation recently? So for those who aren't into sports, LeBron James's first son, his oldest son, Bronny James, made the NBA this year off the strength of his dad. Good old nepotism that a lot of people frowned on, but nepotism happens everywhere. All walks of society, each profession, you're always going to find somebody who's related to somebody who has a position that they probably didn't deserve. I will admit I'm not a LeBron James fan. Just didn't warm up to him when he was drafted. I didn't like all the chosen one hype. He wasn't the first guy to come out of high school, to make a name for himself. That went back decades before him. But he had this big machine with Nike behind him, and some of his closest friends, forming this strong agency that we now know as Clutch Sports. So he had this big machine behind him, and I just was like, who's this dude, man? He hasn't proven himself yet. He had a few high school games that were coming on ESPN, and at the time, LeBron was getting a lot of Magic Johnson comparisons. Big guy who could handle the ball, was a team first player, and I was supporting that. I liked the whole Magic Johnson comparison. Although he came into the league wearing 23 and claiming that Michael Jordan was his idol, Magic Johnson seemed to be the guy that he was, most equal to. And then all of a sudden, here comes the MJ comparisons, and now he's suddenly better than MJ, according to this generation and some from older generations. I beg to differ. Michael's still going to be the GOAT, the greatest of all time, but there can be a GOAT and there can be guys underneath the GOAT. And in this case, a lot of people are now saying, based on LeBron's longevity and the numbers that he's put up, that he's officially the GOAT. He's the best basketball player of all time. And I just don't see how I don't even see the logic behind that. But that's neither here nor there. That'll be a different video. But in this particular instance, I'm kind of torn because Stephen A. Smith has gone up the ranks as a sports journalist, now, television personality type, who's been around roughly 20 years on our television screen. And as someone like myself who studied journalism in school, and I actually wanted to become a journalist at some point, but I was always into journalism, sports journalism in particular. And, the bottom line is this: when you're a public figure playing sports, you are feeding journalists. They have deadlines for their columns. Okay? There's that senior editor who's basically telling you, hey, find a hard news story and I need you to write X, Y, and Z about it just in time for Sunday's newspaper. Unfortunately, this generation just doesn't, we don't have newspapers like that anymore. They're still around, but people don't read them. But journalists always had an objective, and that was to find a good story to create. Not stories that you make up, but a story that perhaps just wasn't circulating. You just found some kind of hard topic on an athlete or a team, and you just, got your facts straight, and you wrote what you had to write or typed what you had to type, and that's that. You weren't in the business in being liked, being admired by athletes. Sure, there are athletes out here who have their favorite, writers who spoke well about them. But the job of a journalist, a columnist, anyone is to give, to be objective. You don't show favoritism. You don't go out there and tell people who your favorite team is, your favorite player, because that creates a bias. And you used to get criticized for that. So Stephen A. Smith is in a tough spot because he came up from that school of thought. You know, being a columnist before becoming this loudmouth personality type. So his job is to see certain things and write about it. Now discuss it. And how he felt about Bronny James, many of us felt that way. And LeBron James is not without criticism, nor is his son. And that's the narcissism from LeBron that turns a lot of people off. Who do you think you are where no one can talk, ill towards you or your child, who was an NBA player? I get if Stephen A. Smith went to your home and looked around and decided to just write blasphemy about your child or your children who are out the limelight. I get that. As a parent, I understand. If someone is attacking your child, all bets are off. Leave the kids alone when they're not in the public eye, especially. But Bronny James is. You created that, LeBron. You created that. So suddenly no one can speak about this guy? It's only okay to show compassion and empathy when he unfortunately had to go through that heart attack scare, a year and a half ago? That's the only time someone should speak about him? This guy played one season in college, had a pretty blah season at that, probably could have used a second season, come out his sophomore year, whatever. But he's in the league because of dad. And now Stephen A. Smith, who I usually don't defend because I don't like loudmouths. And he made a buck becoming this loudmouth personality. And I can only applaud him because he just figured out his own little niche and took off, Stephen A. Smith. But Stephen A. Smith basically said about Bronny James some months ago what everyone else was saying and thinking. And for LeBron to kind of call him out there, to kind of look like this, like he sunned him or something like that, that was lame. That was lame. That's why LeBron's not favorable to a lot of us from the old school. It's his antics. Because he's his family guy and all that stuff, everyone's supposed to embrace him. Or because he's played 20 years and played at this elite level, that everyone's supposed to embrace him. Again, he's not wrong for being annoyed that people are attacking his son, but your son is in the limelight. How does Bronny escape criticism? If people are watching with their own eyes and can tell he's just not cut out for the big boys. The NBA was supposed to be where the big boys play. Every now and then you had one or two guys slipping through the cracks, high school phenoms or first year college phenoms that, showed a little rustiness or pretty much that they weren't ready. And they usually rolled the bench for most of the season. If Bronny would have just rolled the bench, cool. But he gets playing time. And when he got playing time in the NBA, it was below average. And I understand. He's young. He's got years to go. His body's still building. He's still filling out. But he's not immune from attack. He's a public figure. Bronny could have just become a gamer. It's not like he grew up in poverty. His dad was a multi-millionaire when he came out the womb, Bronny James. So Bronny James could have become a gamer and escaped all criticisms. But he chose to play in the league. He signed up for this. When you sign up to be in the limelight, all bets are off. And LeBron James should know better.